This is version 1 of the poor man's submersible. All it is a camera on a stick. Put the GoPro camera on in its waterproof case, put it on the homemade bracket on the end, and stick it over the side of the kayak on a good low tide when all the sea life is out. That's about as simple as it comes, and this is the version that I use the most. Very simple, very effective. This is the bottom end of the photo pole. As you can see, it's a leg of a broken tripod with a homemade aluminum bracket on it and the GoPro camera bolted to that. Now, one modification has been made since this original picture has been taken. The bracket has been rebent to about a 45-degree angle, which makes the entire thing much easier to aim and actually hit what you're pointing at. Now, in this shallow of water, you can see what you're aiming at down there, and that also makes things a lot easier. It's been very simple and very effective, except for one small problem. The problem was the GoPro camera. Actually, not the camera. The problem was the case. The original case is on the left. It has a round lens portal, and the lens cover is a dome shape, and that had a tendency to throw underwater shots out of focus. Works absolutely great on land, but not underwater. On the right, you see the new case, which has a black reflection damper, and the lens cover is absolutely flat glass, which just really clears the situation up and makes the whole thing crystal clear and allows you to take full advantage of the stunning high definition that the tiny little camera is capable of. Now, however, the cloudy conditions in the waters of Puget Sound, I don't think there's any camera that can fix that. So let's take this thing and put it on the end of the stick, and we'll take it to two different piers here on Harstine Island and just basically look at the bottom of the piers and the abundant sea life even there in that easy to access place. And both piers have totally different marine environments, and so they support a different kind of life. So for starters, we'll just kind of head for the local boat ramp and throw the thing over the side there. Pretty cool stuff for being so easy to access. We are at the local boat ramp on the mainland just across from Harstine Island, right at the bridge. And here's a couple of moon jellies. There's a whole bunch of different species of little white jellyfish in Puget Sound, and everybody just kind of lumps them all together and calls them moon jellies. Now, these guys are about 3 inches across, and which is about as big as they grow. Some might get to 4 inches. And they can really be abundant in the summer, and sometimes you actually run into swarms of them. They're really kind of pretty little critters. The scum on the surface is normal. That's produced by plankton in a back eddy. There's a lot of life around this boat ramp because the currents create a back eddy which collects food. And that's more evident when we run around to the other side of the pier and take a few shots off of there. Now here we are on the north side of the pier, and it sports a pretty good garden of various types of sea anemones. It's really interesting because the north side of the pier has all these sea anemones, and the south side of the pier is almost totally covered with blue mussels, which are really good to eat. Lots of big white anemones, and looks like there's a few tube worms in there too. In between the float blocks seems to be an especially good place. Now, it looks like a snowstorm in front is actually plankton. All those little white dots are actually living creatures, which is what the sea anemones, clams and oysters and mussels, and all kind of filter feeders eat. Like I say, the main problem is the cloudy waters of Puget Sound, and especially South Sound. There's more anemones, and during shellfish spawning season there'll be so much spat in the water that it's almost impossible. Looks like a few tube worms way in the back. Very interesting stuff. Now, as we move along, we will get into a blue mussel area. This is the blue mussels, and boy are they good to eat. Absolutely nummy. And you can see they're pretty much up by the top, up at the water line. They're pretty fussy about their depth. We come down and get some once in a while and have them for dinner when the tide's low. Now we have moved our location to Jarrell Cove and Jarrell Cove State Park. This is the bottom of the Jarrell Cove float pier, which sports what I call the Hanging Gardens of Harstine, which is primarily comprised of tube worms. Tube worms are actually segmented worms, and they build a leathery tube, and the top of them has this red pom-pom, and they feed the same as a sea anemone by catching plankton with their hundreds and hundreds of tentacles. Now the water in here is much calmer, so you have a different kind of a life zone. It's a real jungle down there, and there are some smaller white anemones growing on the bottom of the floats. There's a good view of one of the tubes with the critter completely retracted all the way into it. Really amazing scene down there for being such an easy thing to access. Aiming the photo pole is an inexact science. Okay, now I have moved to the outside of the pier, and just you know, from one side of the pier to the other, you can see that there, once again, we've got the plankton snowstorm. And also the tube worms are much, much thicker because there's a lot more food on this side. Just the way the currents run, I guess. Really kind of amazing creatures. I don't know what that strange growth is. Probably just a bunch of stuff stuck to an old dead tube worm case. Just kind of enjoy the scenery. You can see the piling way off in the distance, which kind of demonstrates the visibility problems that scuba divers and underwater photographers have in the murky waters of Puget Sound. Also, when you get down deeper, because of all the plankton and the murk, you don't have anywhere near as much light. And mainly all the cool stuff that you want to really look at is within the top 50 feet. And especially in the shallows in the tide pools on the big minus tide days, which won't come until springtime. This is still midwinter. And so there would be more shiner perch and stuff swimming around during the summer months, but like I say, this is taken at midwinter, and lots of the small sea creatures are way out in the deep water, you know, a couple 100 feet down. They won't come back up until springtime. Pretty scene at Jarrell Cove State Park.